school? Who loves school? Anybody? Y'all are all crazy. All crazy. My wife sometimes looks at me and says, don't you ever wish you could go back to school? I said, don't you ever wish you could go back in labor? I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. I hated school. I hated school. Now, there's some parts about it I like. I love the camaraderie. Okay, that's fun, the sports, everything else. I hated the school work. The actual school work was terrible. And I didn't play favorites with subjects. I hated them all the same. It was equal. Okay? The other thing about school that got really bad is I was too lazy to study more, but I was too much of a good kid. I had too much of a clean conscience to cheat. Okay? So that's a terrible in-between for an average student. It's a terrible in-between. Like, you're too lazy to study, but you're too good of a kid to cheat. And so you just fail. But one time I tried to cheat. Now, this is a funny story. Another class that I was just incredibly horrid at was Spanish. Okay? This particular day, one of the years I took Spanish was Spanish 2. I don't know how I made it Spanish 2, because I didn't learn jack in Spanish 1. Except that T-O, right, and Tia is aunt and uncle, right? Spanish people. T-O, Tia is aunt and uncle. And then, of course, you learn, like, a bunch of Spanish cuss words. That's just what you do when you first get in there. So, I knew aunt and uncle and some Spanish cuss words. I go to the Spanish test, and needless to say, these things were not helping me out in this particular test. And so I went in there, and I had my notes and my study guide, right next to my chair, okay? And because I was such a bad cheater, I forgot to flip them over. So I'm trying to you guys ever done, I'm trying to read through it backwards, like the ink, and it's upside down and backwards and everything else. So it was bad, it was a disaster, and my teacher caught me because it wasn't subtle. So he says to me, Mr. Trimble, come see me after class. I say, okay, it's not the first time. I go to him after class, and we talk about, he says, Mr. Trimble, I know what I saw, but I'm going to let you tell me one time, and you better not lie to me. I said, well, Mr. Pareja, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I tried really hard to cheat. Really hard to cheat. But I forgot to flip it over, and therefore I failed to cheat. So what you have there is a pretty accurate assessment of my knowledge of the Spanish language. I said, it goes down to that, and it also comes down to some other words I know. You want me to tell you? And he says, what? I said, Tio, Tia, and then I cussed my teacher out in Spanish. I failed that test. I failed it, and it did not go well.